Waiting for it to show me we are live. And yes, we are live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Breaking News Show. Today I'm with a special guest and a special friend. He is a person I've known for a while on F1 Twitter. Hated him at first, but when I got to know the guy more, more better, he is one of the nicest guys I have met on the platform. And he doesn't need no introduction. So, Jay, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I think, first of all, back at you with the kind words. I think it's nice to hear that a lot of people say the same thing. I hated this guy at first. Actually, you're all right. Or actually, I'm starting to like this guy, and it's a nice pivot. And I think that comes from actually making an effort to change the way I'm perceived on F1 Twitter and the community. So thank you for having me, and it is a pleasure,
No,
mate.
no, the pleasure is all mine, mate. To be honest, and I honestly, when I shoot you the text, I was like, I don't know if he would do this with me or not. Or is he a podcast kind of guy, or would he just be like, "Nah, I'm good, mate"? But yeah, here we are, and I was like, you know what? There's no better way to put him on the spot rather than just bring out the conversation about Red Bull and whatever is going on right now in that team. But before we start with Red Bull and we move into that dimension, I know we look like blue and purple. It's like the Miami livery, let's keep it that way because that's the last time Red Bull sniffed a good result before things start to go
Yeah,
downhill.
yeah.
So let's before we move talking into Red Bull, let's just talk about what is your summary for the first half of the season, and what is your biased and unbiased opinion?
I think a lot of people are going to realise I'm not actually as biased as it seems on the timeline.
Yeah,
So obviously,
you're
just
not.
a
I'm
bit
just
of
kidding.
background context. You look at 2023, probably one of
Yeah,
the most ridiculous Formula One seasons that we've seen
yeah,
in a long time, and the numbers that were beaten, the stats that Max actually put out, were pretty ridiculous. As crazy as this is going to sound coming from me, it was a bit like bittersweet because yes, all these numbers and all these celebrations were happening, but I watched Max start a race, I watched Max pit twice in a race, and I watched Max finish the race, and I never got to actually see my driver do what he does best. So it was one of them, and then you come into this season, pretty much looks like business as usual. The same old Red Bulls come out with something ridiculous. We all thought that, the upgrade ceiling has probably gone a bit higher than where they were at last year.
yeah,
A lot of
yeah,
teams have started to pivot towards the Red Bull concept of 23. And then, you get to Australia. I'll be honest, I woke up for Australia after a night out, saw his brakes disappear down the pit lane, and pretty quickly went back to sleep. And I caught up with the race later in the day. And then you see Miami with full credit to Lando who pulled that out of the bag. It was quite apparent that Red Bull were probably not going to be in for a 2023 similar season, and now we're at a point where you're like, wow, actually, every time I watch a race, there's adrenaline that's come back. It's not
yeah,
just watching start, pit stop, finish. I'm just so invested in the battles that are up and down the grid. McLaren, what a job they've done, and what an absolute fantastic job Mercedes have done. I think I'm hoping she said she was going to watch it. My little girl's watching as well. I watched Silverstone with her, and she had just this wonderful moment. And my son, who's a Leclerc fan, he got to watch Leclerc win in Monaco, and Emily got to watch Lewis win in Silverstone. They were pretty two.
Silverstone.
So we're
Wow.
getting a lot of incredible moments, and Max is having to work for his flowers. And for me, I prefer that. I prefer to see my driver doing what he does best. So although people are probably thinking, oh, Jay's probably not having a good time this season, I really am enjoying it, and I'm enjoying it from front to back. So it's a bit different.
I mean, listen, only a super biased hater who would be like, yeah, I'm not enjoying this season because what isn't there not to enjoy about? I mean, I get it. Nobody would enjoy if their drivers is not the one in the mix. I'm sure the Alonso fans are like now biting their nails, like wishing that whatever storm Aston Martin arrived with in 2023 was in 2024 because then he would be in the mix with the
Yeah.
others, and now he's not. And I'm sure, like, even now, some of the Charles Leclerc fans feeling the same way now that Ferrari is an upgrade later. But they started well, and then we're like, okay, the team that could beat Red Bull is actually Ferrari, and then things took all of a sudden a whole different turn for them after Monaco, like upgrades that are now working. And then Mercedes from literally P7, P9, P8, P9 to fastest car in Belgium. Like,
Yeah.
if you said that at the start of the season, yeah, and McLaren as well. We cannot deny that. You mentioned a good point about Lando, and yeah, I think Miami was his first race to test his iron and see, like, right now this is your first chance to win a race, and the cars are pretty much even between the Red Bull and, I mean, McLaren was slightly faster, but like, there's like, yeah, cars are pretty much almost the same. What you're gonna do about it now,
Yeah.
So, and he delivered. That's the thing. He delivered, but we will talk about other moments he had throughout the season. Max Verstappen, so far, we can say he's single-handedly carrying Red Bull. Now, I know a lot of Checo fans will not like that, because to have 7 drivers winning, to have 7 drivers, 4 teams would want to, right? And Max having 7 wins in the bag, which means that car had 7 wins in the bag. And all the teams now in the top 4 have a driver won a race or 2, but yet Perez hasn't even got 1. So
Yeah.
it kind of like puts questions in there. Like, Max is literally, if it wasn't for Max's good start of the season, I think that the drivers and constructor championship would have been much closer than what it is right now.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, to extend a small apology to the Checo fans, I think I have been very critical of Checo, and it probably has crossed a fine line at some times. And that's never been my intention to, just to blindly hate towards, drivers. But when you look at his performances and the numbers and what he's done wrong, which are mistakes on his part, he's over pushed something, or quite frankly, in Belgium he had a complete implosion. That could have been a career or year design, not career defining moment, but a season defining moment for him. That could have been a turnaround point. You end the first half of the season on a high, you go into some sort of assessment phase over the summer break and come back in the second half fresh. You're riding some momentum from Belgium, and he just seemed to go just slowly backwards. And to be honest, I still stand by my opinion that Checo Perez is still one of the most underrated drivers we've seen in the modern era. He has these wonderful moments, but we're seeing them less and less. In fact, I don't think we've seen incredible moments from Checo for a good while now. The frustration is we know there's a good driver there, and Max fans specifically also know there's a good driver there. However, because his performances are not there, it puts more pressure onto Red Bull's other driver, which is Max. And, if Max is having to do it all the time, he's having to fix things or fight and dig the trenches all the time, there's going to put pressure on him. He's going to have moments where he cracks. And whether that's like in Hungary, which was a monumental meltdown, obviously, or just little things he's doing wrong, small little mistakes. You look at 23, he was pretty much driving just on autopilot. And there was even times where we was watching the screens while he's racing.
Yeah.
And whenever people got close to him, there was a moment, I remember when Lando got a bit close to him in Brazil, and then Max just went, bang, there's the gap again. Because he had those extra gears. But now he's got people who will push him to take those extra gears. And he's got some sort of frustrations that are going on. I mean, we're never going to know the ins and outs. But as a fan just watching, with everything that's going on with the whole Red Bull bubble, that's got to have a knock-on effect on what Max is doing and what Max is thinking, and how he's kind of, you can understand why these frustrations come out. And if you are racing with one leg, tied up, or one arm behind your back in a file, it's going to annoy people. Do you know what I mean? And I think, I actually hope Checo finds himself over the summer break. And even if that means Checo makes a decision to leave Red Bull to go and look for another drive, the fresh start could be everything he needs for his well-being. You've got to think this is a human being as well. This isn't just a Formula One driver that you expect performances from, and that's why I issued my small apology of being too hypercritical on Checo. That's still a person, so maybe a fresh start would be good for him.
I mean, not only you, I think, okay, there are people who've been critical on his performance, like performance-wise, there's no denying everything we've seen is shambolic ever since China.
Yeah.
Like China was the last time he had a good result, and even then Max dropped like 25 seconds on him.
Yeah.
Something like that, something ridiculous. So and I think that's the last time he came second behind Max. So there's like, in China and Japan this year, that's exactly what you want from a second driver. Anything like in 2021, that's exactly what you needed from a second driver. Except, there were some moments where he dropped it big, and Red Bull could have literally won both championships in 2021 if it wasn't for the points he was dropping here and there.
Yeah.
So you think about it and you're like, okay, so we've seen the good Checo, but like this Checo right now is like a hold. We're talking about a proper back marker, and I'm not saying it a back marker in a sense of good performance, but back car. I'm talking about like back cars and bad performance. Like, I'm not gonna degrade him and say Mazepin or Maldonado. That's disrespectful at that point. But like, I'm talking about like last season Grosjean and stuff like that. That's what I'm seeing over here. But just with a car that is slightly better, or much better, not slightly, much better. So the thing is, and just over the last weekend, I was talking with the Quick Stop F1 podcast, Nyasha. Shout out to them, and please, guys, give them a listen. And there was something that skipped me until I saw a picture or a video of what it looked like. Christian, after the podcast, saw a picture of Christian Horner and Daniel Ricciardo having a chat on the sideline after Belgium. And we saw all of a sudden Max right after that posting the video of him and Daniel, and Daniel's like all smiles and trying to hide his smile, and all that. You're like, I was like, this is giving me George Russell vibes after Belgium 2021, like where he was seen with Toto, and then ever since he's just trying to hide his smile. Like, this is done. But then it looked like something has changed. Something forced Red Bull to change this decision, not from Red Bull, from the outside. I'm not saying it's a conspiracy or anything, but it looks like there is a huge package deal involved with Checo. If he's out of F1 now, everything is going to fall apart. You have the Disney show coming for him. You have all the sponsors and everything that they've injected a lot of money to promote Checo Perez, a Latam F1 driver. He's the only Latino F1 driver currently on the grid. So, if anything, him being out now, it's bad for the business. They need him at least for Mexico and Brazil to be there.
Yeah.
So, and you just feel like this, you're like, okay, so if the team principal and a shareholder cannot have a decision, Red Bull cannot have a decision, what do you expect? You get news. I'm not going to say that the news of, oh my God, I forgot the man's name. Who just left Red Bull? Oh my God. Who just left Red Bull?
Wheatley.
Wheatley, thank you very much. It's like, when it's in your brain, but you can't get it out. You can't spit it out.
When you said that, I was like, I don't know any drivers that have left.
No, it's not drivers, no. I'm talking about Wheatley. So, like, I know probably Wheatley's news has nothing to do with Checo, obviously, but it's everything started from the start of the season, like all the news about the harassment and all that. And then a lot of people said, oh, yeah, it's not true. This is all BS. It's all made up. They're trying to take the man down. But it surely would not be the case if you're going to have person like Jos coming out day in, day out, but like, this guy's going to be the downfall of Red Bull.
Yeah. So
unless he has something solved in his head,
So
boom,
a bit of like a bit of
yeah.
opinion from this side is obviously I come into this season very much a Red Bull fan. I mean, I became a Red Bull fan when they purchased Jaguar. At the time, I was at uni and I was studying Red Bull as a marketing company, and I got
Oh,
obsessed
okay.
with them. So that's how I became a Red Bull fan. So you see this news break about Christian Horner, the WhatsApp messages and stuff like that. We've all seen them. We know there's some fake stuff in there. We know that there's some inaccuracies in there, but there's also a lot of stuff that's completely believable. And I was one of those people that came out and defended that, right? Because I was a Red Bull fan. And the more and more things go on, and the more and more Red Bull are always in the scandal, the more and more these things happen and people say things and all these things that you're uncertain about and stuff like that, the more you start to think, hold on, there's something here. There's something that this fan base and that fan base is saying that's completely accurate. And I've had some really open conversations with yourself, privately,
Yeah.
other people, Lewis fans, other fans from other different teams. And that's when you start to get a broader picture. And that's when you start to think there is definitely something here. And for the first
Yeah.
time, I can actually pretty much say I don't feel like I'm a Red Bull fan because I can't support the constant drama. And it is tiring to be a Red Bull fan when you're constantly surrounded by scandal, 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 scandal.
It's
And
not
then
even racing drama, the issue. It's not a racing
it's
drama. If it's
exactly,
racing drama, screw that. They
yeah,
don't pay me. They don't pay me, to be that much invested emotionally in them, a multi-million, multi-billion dollar institution. But it's more of this is people getting hurt in the process
yeah.
of this. But sorry, continue.
Yeah, so when you see all these things happening and the uncertainties, it's actually just a struggle. So when things like this happen with Checo, like I'm a fan of sports based on performance and results. Like, that's what I love sports for. It's probably why I connected with Verstappen. He's very much a driver for the purists. I feel, my opinion. So when you see all these things happening, you're just like, I just want to focus on the racing, please. Like, I just want to focus on the results. And if F1 is a results business, and you've seen Red Bull be very brutal with their results-based outcomes and their decisions with drivers. Gasly was dropped for basically breathing too close to the cars. Albon got dropped. And I think, these are both very, very good drivers.
Very good
Like,
drivers.
they did not even a fraction of what Checo's done wrong, and they were dropped. And you're talking mid-season drops. You're talking like brutal, see you later kind of dismissals. So
Emotional damage.
yeah, emotional. So when you're hearing like all these money and sponsorships that Checo's got is keeping him in a seat. When you hear these rumours, and I haven't dived into seeing if they're factual, where Liberty Media have stepped in to try and stop Checo being dismissed. And when you see all these kind of things going on, then you start to be frustrated as a fan. And when you're, that has an added effect and a knock-on effect to how you sort of enjoy your experience of being on, Twitter, because
Yeah.
you're constantly having to defend yourself, or you're constantly having to defend against what's happening with Red Bull. And I'm just like, I just want to enjoy the racing and make a few jokes along the way. Like, that's literally why I'm here. And, now I'm pivoting to want to add to the community, which is, I think it's great anyway. But it does become a drain. And when you're logging on and you're just going, oh, what's Horner done now? Or what's he said now? And then you see like key members like Nui leave and Wheatley leave, and there's all rumours about other people potentially leaving. Obviously, the big one is potentially does Max leave. There's got
Are
to
you
be a
gonna
big.
buy a Mercedes merchandise at this point?
So I've had this conversation. I will
Yeah.
buy Mercedes top as long as it's got MV on it. But it's you see like these two Goliath teams, Red Bull and Mercedes. Red Bull's always in the drama and the scandals. Mercedes sometimes have a bit of something, but it's not nearly to what's happening at Red Bull. Month in, month out, or season in, season out. So yeah, it's an interesting one, but there's got to be a bigger thing going on at Red Bull for all these people. Like, Joss wouldn't just come out and say some of the stuff he said if there wasn't some sort of credit behind what he's saying. So I'd love to be a fly on the wall in some of these conversations, honestly.
I mean, listen, I'm sure not just you. Like, number one would be the F1 journalists want it to be as much near as anything. Will get a whiff of all the conversations that happen behind the doors. And I mean, when we talk about performance, like we can take for instance Oscar Piastri. He had a bit of a rough start of the season. Also, as McLaren were not as good as they were now, they were okay, but they were not like good to be, close to competition and be competing for wins and stuff like that. And then as the season went by, you saw that Oscar Piastri. We can notice that Oscar Piastri is just getting better and better
Yeah.
mentally, and even in his racecraft. And it's like even on the radio, you don't see him yelling, you don't see him
Yep.
cursing or throwing a hissy fit or any of that. Just calm. I know a lot of people saying he's the new Kimi Räikkönen, but I think this kid is much colder than that, because Kimi,
Yeah.
he would be calm on the radio, but then he could snap any second and just yell at you and on the radio. And with him, he's calm. I don't know, is it because he's the way he is, or just like trying to adjust himself at the moment, the team, uh, put his foot on the ground somewhere in that team, because you're in Lando team at the moment.
Yeah.
You cannot claim to be the number one driver or get the priority until you show that, you know. So, do you think we can see a day where Lando has to look back on his shoulder and keep a close eye on Oscar Piastri? You think Lando will just keep that safety gap between him and Oscar, and just like beat him as a teammate?
So I think he's not far having to keep an eye on Oscar. For me, Oscar put his 2 feet clearly on the ground in F1 when the whole Alpine announcement of him came out, and it was no PR. He didn't let McLaren
Happy
announce it.
anniversary for that, by the way. It was
Yes,
just
yeah.
yesterday.
So he literally just come out and he issued that statement, and I just thought, you know what? There's a maturity about you already. There's a there's a set, excuse me, but a set of balls about you already. He's like you say, he's calm and composed. But I mean, Lando is very quick, and I've always said he's the one that could take it to Verstappen. And a little bit of sort of eating my hat on that, because this year you've seen Lando not do well from starts. Go backwards,
Yeah,
make mistakes, and they need to go. And I know Oscar's not, getting onto those poles as often as Lando is, or he's not quite there yet where Lando is. I think Lando's had a lot more, career development, and he's at a slightly more advanced stage of where Oscar is. But when Oscar's there, Oscar performs. Even if it's really consistently, you see a lot less mistakes or bottling. I hate using the word bottling, but I wouldn't surprise me if
I mean, you
Lando's
could use it.
already looking. Yeah. I wouldn't surprise me if Lando's already thinking, I have to be at my top of my game because my teammate is very quick. And he's already won a race. Oscar's won a race this quickly. And that's a huge credit to how good he is. So it's interesting, and it's somebody I'd like to see him do much better. I'd also like to see Lando do much better. And they've got the car. This is the thing, when they come up behind the Red Bulls now, I'm thinking, oh God, here we go. And it's like, so you're starting to see the striking distance sort of graphic come back. Have you noticed that? We haven't seen that for a while, but now we're getting it striking distance in 4 laps. And you're like, okay, it's a McLaren on a Red Bull. Yeah, this isn't going to be easy.
I mean, to be honest, like, I always think, like, if there's by any chance, let's say if they were in the title contention from the start, and this was the case, and again, all fair to Lando, he had a good race in Miami, he won. I think in many ways he was cooking the tires, like in Imola, for example. You
Yeah.
can see him when he started, like, all of a sudden sliding all over the place and just, be messy and all that stuff. Like, and yeah, not to mention the bad start in the Austria sprint, and then, things that it is Max's fault in Austria and all that, but like it could have been done much easier than what it is. And you see Oscar as well, like taking big advantage of that squabble he had with Max in sprint and just overtake him and almost go at Max. So I agree with you in a sense of, if this was in a title contention, it's just going to be like, I'm not trying to compare both drivers to Alonso and Hamilton, but it would look like Alonso and Hamilton in McLaren all over again.
Yeah.
And that itself, I don't think McLaren or any team at the moment can afford against Red Bull. Why is that? Because they have a driver who can, he can do whatever it needs to be done with whatever car he has. Car can finish P4, he'll finish P4. The biggest head loss he had in a very long time is Hungary. I've never seen him that much. Bring in that old scrappy part of him, which is it was always the best when it comes to driving. But yeah, so overall, I think Max can outdo both of them because of the experience he has at
Yeah,
the moment. The team around him, as of McLaren, I think if they're if McLaren gets a car that is at least 4 tenths faster a lap,
yeah.
it's over then. It doesn't matter what experience Red Bull brings or whatever Max does, 4 tenths a lap, there's no way you can close that. You need to put some mid driver in that car for you to have that chance. So, do you think at the end of the season we could see Perez out of that seat, or do you think
So Helmet's already
it,
said that the cards get reshuffled next year. Whether that means he goes back into VCarb, however, they've also said that VCarb must operate as a junior team. So I don't know. I can't see him having a seat next year. I think it will just be. Well, to be honest, I don't think Red Bull's winning the constructors this year. That's. I
Ooh,
don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they're going to. They could end up third in the constructors if they don't. If Perez is constantly not in the points, not performing. So you can't do that. You can't go into a season only relying on one driver. I mean, you take out Checo's points in 23. Max still won the constructors on his own, and Red Bull can't continue like that because once you start to falter in small areas, it starts to leak through the team. Look at McLaren, for example. They start to nail their pit stops. They started to pay attention on every single little detail of their game. And it's largely what Red Bull had to do to even get close to Mercedes of years gone. But if Red Bull are going into a season with one arm behind the back, it makes no sense. No sense. And I'd hate to say we need to get rid of this driver, but a driver change needs to happen at Red Bull. And I think if Max has got somebody up there fighting with him, he has a lot better chance of winning or they winning. Or you're playing as a team. Often
yeah.
Checo's not even in the third part of qualifying to give a tow. So Max is literally doing it all on his own, without the tow, without this teammate, this and that. I mean, you look at, dare I bring it up, but Abu Dhabi 21, Checo's driving literally brought Max into play, and that's the Checo that people want to see. But if you don't have a driver that's even there, if that was 2020, if this was this year, for example, Checo likely wouldn't have got to third part of qualifying and have started 12th. And now you haven't got all the cards to play. Now you can't play the key strategies. Now you can't throw Checo Perez in for an early pit stop to make a driver ahead think about an early pit stop. The undercuts can happen by using your teammates as well. So if we haven't got all the cards to play, then we're at a disadvantage before we've even started. And now the cars are quicker, Mercedes quicker, McLaren quicker. We can't afford that. It's completely ill-advised from a sporting point of view.
Somebody here asked me a question from 3 hours ago. Somebody left a question. So, oh my God, your name is hard to pronounce. I'm sorry, I'm going to try my best. So, Radityo Utomo. He asked, do you think this will lose Max his fourth championship? I mean, context, he means everything happening in Red Bull. Do you think Max have this championship in the bag, the fourth championship, or do you think it's gonna come down to a fight?
So I believe in Max. Everyone knows that, and he is a driver that doesn't believe in a losing situation. He will find a way. He's found a way before. He's found a way to win races that are impossible. He's found a way to do things in the car that shouldn't have happened. He will find a way, but I think it's going to go down to the wire. I think it's going to be close. I hope that Red Bull come out of the summer break with an upgrade package that works, makes the car a bit more predictable, a bit more reliable of what they want when they go into corners, when they do the things that they want it to do. And I think Max will get the job done. But for me, I think we're saying bye to the constructors at the bare minimum. And I'm trying not to think about the drivers because I think Max will get it done. I do believe that, and I'm going to stick with that word.
I mean, I would agree with you on the basis of seeing how many teams have reshuffled in the lead, like from McLaren going the second fastest and taking 2 wins, to McLaren being that car, and then in the last 4 races looked like Mercedes were in that mix and being even the fastest in 2 races. It kinda could help Max do a Braun GP, like be the one to benefit from this, is be consistently within the top four. If the car remains this way, then all he has to do is just remain in the top four all the
Yeah,
time. If McLaren be like, listen, no more losing from this point forward, Lando P1, Oscar P2, P3, whatever, just target Max behind both cars, nothing else. Let the other teams do their thing with him. We are going to fight our own battle. If it turns out to that, then I think it could go down to the wire.
yeah,
And if Red Bull doesn't have the car, I don't think he can pull it off. I'm not saying his talent is the problem. If the car is not there, then there's nothing much he
no,
can
no,
do.
no,
And I think over the season, if this momentum of Red Bull continues and McLaren pull themselves together and have better race, better strategy, and all of that, uh, the confidence could rise,
yeah, yeah,
which
yeah,
means Lando will be more confident, Oscar will be more confident, the team and the strategies and the car they have and everything will be more confident. And yeah, we could see a whole different team. And I think this is one of those things that helped Red Bull, not in 2021, not because yeah, they had no experience. They have the experience winning championship, but it's been a while. But they built the confidence over the season when they realized they have actually a fast car.
yeah, yeah,
And they
yeah,
were fast, like about say 55% of the season or 50% of the season, they were faster than the Mercedes in some races. And Max in particular, there was nothing they can do about him. So if that happens with McLaren, then we are looking at a whole different championship. I think the constructors is done.
oh, yeah. I do as well. I do, and just to touch on your point about confidence there, when you see McLaren and Zach Brown in meetings and they're talking about, oh, they're kind of, I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but we're not used to this. This is new to us again. It's not new to the McLaren name, and I'd like to see them drop those kind of mentalities when they come to it. Like, you were quick, you were actually unbelievably quick. You know what you're doing. You know your car's quick. Both your drivers are a super strong pairing. Just go and own it. And they need to iron them out. And like I say, when they start to build and they've got that momentum and that confidence, they'll make bolder decisions with strategy that might work. You might pull off a wonder strategy to win a race. But if you're not confident to do that, it's kind of like you just stick to safe, don't you? But I'd like to see them drop those kind of small-minded mentalities and just actually
Yeah.
accept how good they are, because they are brilliant.
I mean, when it comes to being brilliant, and we've seen that, and I would have never thought that this car last season was, suffering in P18, P19, P17, something ridiculous like around Miami, and now it is definitely the fastest car. And if anything, in all fairness, the cost cap was the reason behind this. And now let's just focus a little bit here on Red Bull. Do we? Okay, this is by no means, it's no disrespect to anybody working in Red Bull department, engineering, engines, and all that stuff. It is no disrespect to be in F1 and work in F1 in general, either with Haas, with Williams, all the way up to Mercedes for our Red Bull. You have to be brilliant. You have to have a good CV to be in F1 in engineering department. Okay. Do we think that the exit of Adrian brought the spiral upon the engineer department? Or do we think it's just what Adrian said at the start of the season? I know I keep asking a lot of people this, and I keep saying it to anyone who comes in with me on the show, but I'll say it again. The comment that a lot of people call me a delusional, and some people even insulted me, blah, 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 blah. Adrian's comment back in April when he said, we don't see how this car can improve any better, and others will catch up to us because the learning curve for how far we can upgrade this car has flattened, is almost flattening. Do we
Yeah,
think that curve actually now flattened, and his exit just added more insult, more salt to the engineer?
I think, I mean, I've worked in big corporate companies myself, not on the scale of F1. When you
Yeah,
start to see big names hand notices in or potentially go to somebody else within the industry, that starts to add ripples and the ripples start to grow. Some people will
yeah,
start to feel uneasy. Some people will start to feel, what's going on? And if they feel like they haven't been communicated to properly, that could make them have their eye on the door too. And the trouble is sometimes in any work kind of environment, if you've got your eye on the door, the potential is that you never take your eye off that door because you've already looked. I've been there in other companies myself. But when you see a name like Adrian Newey, now Adrian Newey is not just a wonderful mind, a racing genius as far as I'm concerned. He is the kind of person that people turn around and go, I want to work here because I want to work with Adrian. Even Lewis has said, I'd love to work with Adrian. And Adrian said, I'd love to work with Lewis. It's great. So there are people that will just want to work with him. And if they feel like that person's left, then they're going to be like, oh, where do I fit in? Where's the hierarchy now? Like, where's my confidence with this? And I think if people start to lose confidence, then they're going to be like, want to leave and find something that's a bit more calm and secure for them, because bearing in mind, they
yeah,
are performing at elite levels in an industry that
yeah,
is just beyond people's comprehension of how crazy good you have to be to get into there. You know, you want to feel comfort in your role. You want to go home and feel like, right, it's a good day today. I feel secure. You start to lose security, it starts to affect your home life. So I wonder if Newey's departure has sent those ripples into other people. And I know we've talked about Jonathan Wheatley's potentially taking
yeah.
the Audi team principal, which I saw a report saying that Audi was shocked that was even announced. And for me, it felt like Red Bull were trying to take their little spark of amazing
I think
news.
Red Bull's trying to take the piss, is what
Yeah,
they're doing. The Red Bull, they're like they're I can't be asked era. Like I can't be asked, man. It's like screw him, just announce him. He's leaving already. I don't.
yeah,
Yeah, thank you for your service for the last 20 years. Just goodbye, man. Enjoy your life. We wish you the best of luck when it comes to whatever side of race you get. But listen, that's a serious team if you think about it. Jonathan has a huge experience, right? And I know the thing that I hated from a lot of Red Bull fans is when Jonathan left. They're like, oh yeah, but he doesn't have no technical position, blah blah blah. Nah, man, yeah, yeah. Well, what he's gonna, yeah, good luck, be team TP, take money, yeah, good, good. It's like, and then with same thing when Adrian left. They're like, yeah, well, so what? Yeah, there's like 300 people in the factory, so blah 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 blah, yap 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 yapatonian yap town and all that. So it's like, why are you degrading their achievements all of a sudden
yeah,
after
yeah,
all this?
yeah. And
Also, if their reason to leave the team because of all what was happening at the start of the season, I don't blame them. What if
no,
a person does not want to associate with that?
yeah.
It's not a problem.
No,
Okay.
and it's I was one of those people that came out to highlight some of what Adrian Newey's achieved, and if Red Bull, I put up the other day, if Red Bull are prepared to let these two people leave, and a lot of people came back and said, Jonathan Wheatley's gone for this role, and they're taking promotions and blah blah blah. However, Red Bull has an environment that has allowed these people to leave. So as far as I'm concerned, Red Bull has allowed these two key members to leave. And they talk about, diminishing what Newey does. He just does this role or he just does that role. Do you know how vital it is to have a director at his kind of level that makes decisions on what to do, what to put their time into, what to resource into? That is just, for him to make those decisions is absolutely just massively vital to Red Bull. And there are wonderful people across all the teams that can do that level of role. But to lose the name that goes with it as well, that's what people don't realize. You're not only getting this incredible mind, but the Adrian Newey name or the Jonathan Wick, these absolute
Yeah.
like celebrities in the engineering world. Do you know what I mean? And that those people alone in your, I'll just touch on it then, but those people alone in your company will pull people in, pull more talent in. The most talented people want to work with the most talented people. So if you start to lose these key components, then you're gonna, you've got to have a strategy behind it. And I really hope Red Bull does have a strategy, and I really hope they have one that makes sense and is going to actually work. Because if not, it's downhill as far as I'm concerned. That's where it's going to go, and it's turning fans. So I don't want to speak for all fans, but myself, like, I'm struggling to tell people, yes, I'm a Red Bull fan. I'm struggling to tell people that at the moment. I go, no, it's Max, baby. That's it.
I mean, I don't think it should be a problem to tell people you're a Red Bull fan. You're a Red Bull fan before knowing any of this stuff happening, And it's like it shouldn't. Nobody should. Less like I understand if some fans, but okay, I don't want to be associated with this team because of this and X, Y, and Z and all that stuff. So I get it. And I wouldn't be the type of like, yeah, I encourage you, like, stop supporting, unless Red Bull supporting war crimes, then that's a whole different conversation here. But like, we're talking about something a person did to his colleague and tried to take advantage of that and for his power and position. And I don't want to keep rolling back to that. It's just, for me, the moment where I felt something is 100% wrong is that when the person in question was offered money
Yeah.
and said, keep that to you, I'm seeing you in the court. That's when you know it's serious. Because a lot of people, they would take the money and just be like, you know what, screw it. This is what I've been looking for anyway. But no, this person seemed to be hurt,
Yeah.
And that, as you said, like, it just sent the shock and ripples across the team, and especially with the biggest man in the entire, like, engineering department say, I'm out. And okay, maybe he wanted to leave from long time ago, but maybe what happened, it was his calling to be like, I think this is actually the better time for me to leave now before it gets even more awkward. And the power struggle we have witnessed in that team, and it's showing on them. And sorry, just off topic, Noah Lils just won the gold medal. For context, that's the sprinter who went on the press and said world champion of what, regarding the NBA champions calling themselves world champions. So yeah, please, man, Noah, congratulations for your goal. I know he doesn't care. Nobody cares about me, or he's gonna listen to this. Congratulations, enjoy that medal. That proves that you are the top of the world. Actually, not winning um, a national trophy in your home turf and call yourself a world champion. It's like it's like Man City calling themselves the world champions because they're the best league in the world and they have people from all nationalities. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, you're completely right. If you're thinking of making a move and leaving, something like what happened at the start of the season is going to push you over the edge. And there was times where that whole Horner fiasco, I was going from one mind to the other because there were so many things going on, and I was just like, but again, it ties into being a Red Bull fan, because at the end of the day, we only really interact with other fans. So when these things happen and you're on the timeline and defending yourself every day, it's very easy to slip into those little toxic traits and argue with people, and it has a massive compound effect on how fans are experiencing the sport when stuff like that happens. And also,
Yeah.
I mean, quite frankly, there are people that would have saw that news break and be actually affected by what's happening in their life, and you wouldn't wish those kind of things on anybody. And that's the more important thing. I'm a dad of a little girl. I know what these kind of things would make me feel like if I knew that happened to any females in my life, or any people. It doesn't have to be gender specific. These are things that shouldn't happen, and shouldn't happen in a sport so public and have this level of spotlight on it. So it's difficult. It's difficult to continue, with being a Red Bull fan at the moment. But yeah, it's just, I just wish they'd focus on the sports and stay at the spotlight for a good while, because it's tiring.
I mean, You touch on a good, like the human side, and this is the one thing I hated about those days. And when that new, I know now, it's funny when you think about it, nobody even talks about that. And I hope everything's resolved. If there's anything, any justice to be served, I hope it's served right
Yeah,
away. uh Reason why I was so mad at some of the stuff that I've seen is that people, if you say, okay, this is wrong, they're like, oh yeah, you woke. And then if you say, oh no, this is absolutely not wrong at all, like, so it's just like there's the part people who just like praying to God this is true. Two types piss me off: people who praying this is true, and then there's people who absolutely denying it, and as like if this man is a saint from God and comes with no faults and he's always right and everything. If you're wishing the person to be wrong, praying to be wrong, somebody else, what if that person is your sibling or your daughter or your friend, or and you watch another person praying, oh God, please, I hope this person got insulted, both aside here, like uh, just so you can have your the moment that you were looking for, whatever you're praying for, and then absolutely denying it. Imagine also watching people on social media, people just want to argue and be like, absolutely false, this is stupendous, absurd, he's a man married kids. It doesn't matter about that. They matter in his life as well, and you have to feel for them because they have to take that damage in a way or another as well.
yeah,
But imagine watching your friend being denied their right after going through whatever they went through.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
that's another case. So for me, I think, as like a lot of people have mentioned this, like Red Bull have built a super team. It's like they built the Galacticos in Real Madrid. Remember the Galacticos days? Like they
yeah, yeah,
built the Galacticos in early 2000s, then the Galacticos of 2009. Then you have the current Galacticos. It's like this man built the Galacticos and destroyed it with a snap of finger, with
yeah,
his own doing. Nobody did this. He did this. It's one of those bizarre moments where a lot of people will be like, who would take Red Bull down at this point? And it's like they took themselves down.
yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? And then you have people involving from outside regarding another driver's seat, and you don't know. Like, if they don't want a junior driver, sorry, if they want VCOP to be a junior series for junior series, what am I saying? A junior team for junior drivers, then why are you keeping Daniel Ricciardo there?
yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
if you are okay with Sergio Perez, what you gonna do about Daniel Ricciardo, who have fairly in some races shown a better performance? Performance doesn't have to mean points and be in podium or something like that. The performance of the car, what it can deliver, he delivered that. So what you gonna do? And Yuki, who has proven in so many times he is better than Daniel Ricciardo as well.
Yeah.
That's your junior driver. What you gonna do about him as well?
When you look at obviously they bring Danny Rick back in, and they put Danny Rick in the V carb. Fair, right? That car's not nearly as good as the Red Bull, right? And it was these.
Absolutely.
I remember they seen they'd done those test laps after Silverstone, and they were saying his track times that he was pulling around Silverstone would have put him on the front row with Max, and it was bang, get him in the V carb, fine. Now you've put him in a car that isn't Red Bull level. He's clearly proved he could drive the Red Bull. So now he's done a bit of a season, half season or whatever. And then some of his performances have been underwhelming, blah, blah, blah. Now there's doubt whether Danny Rick could go straight in the Red Bull because he's had some performances that quite haven't hit the mark. Then, like you say, you've got Yuki, who has done an amazing job since he's gone into that team, who arguably deserves that shot. And then,
I mean, since last season, he was been doing good.
yeah, exactly. And then
In all fairness, except for the Daniel Ricciardo, I think P4 or P3 in Mexico, that was phenomenal to see.
brilliant driving, absolutely fantastic. But then the other one to consider is obviously there's Liam Lawson there as well. So you've got all these drivers, and then for me, it all comes back to who's making these decisions at Red Bull, because none of them are making sense at the moment. For me, if I could just do whatever I wanted today, and I could just click my fingers and it would happen at Red Bull, I'd have Max and I would have Danny Rick till the end of the season, right? And that would be it. I think he'd do a better consistent job than Checo at the moment. Hopefully that doesn't point me on. People probably are going to disagree with me, but that's fine.
A lot
Maybe
of things in this podcast aged well, so just fire
yeah,
away.
exactly. So maybe, that's a bit of nostalgia because I just think Danny Rick. I think I've got a mug downstairs that says mentally dating Danny Rick, so it's fine. And it would be Yuki and Lawson in the V carb. But arguably, if you were going to go long term, you'd put Yuki next to Max and just say, let's go. What's the worst that can happen? You can just, he knows it works in the Red Bull. He could just have half a season. If it doesn't work, he goes backwards, but Yuki probably wouldn't like that. He's just as vocal as Max sometimes. But yeah, like I say, it just comes down to some decision making that's really questionable at the moment. They're not making these Red Bull-esque, critical and sometimes brutal decisions. And it comes down to that one man again, doesn't it? Which is a shame, really. But it just seems that everything about Red Bull at the moment is politics. Politics here. So when you talk about, if you did get rid of Horner, who would step in and replace him? There's arguments to replace his role with two, because it's easier to upgrade one half of the job at a time if you wanted to do it. But who, as a team principal, if you forget, I know I don't want, this is going to come out wrong and I hope it doesn't. If you take away what he did this year, as a team principal, what he's done with Red Bull, like you said, built that from nothing and to where it got to, the 4 titles with Seb Vettel, the current reign of performance they've got now. Who can do that role? It's a real difficult one. However, you still shouldn't have a person in that role that has done something like that. So it's a real mess at the moment, and they need to sort it out quickly, I think.
I mean, Red Bull just for last season, 2021 and everything. So again, listen, opinions, they keep changing a lot in F1. And one day people are praising you, next day people are just putting it in your back, like shanking you and all that. It's when you see 2021 and 2022, 2023, a lot of people were giving props to Horner. Like, if I want any team principal, would be that man. And because look at him, he takes decisive decisions. He doesn't give no mercy to drivers and blah, blah, blah. He wants performance. He kicked Gasly. He kicked Albon, brought Perez. Perez was the guy he deemed as the second driver, helped his guy to win the Drivers' Championship. 2022, 2023, you see, look, people, oh yeah, look at Horner, even when they're dominating. Like people's opinions, they were singing his praise and just digging at Toto left and right, uppercut, jab, and just that man was beaten so bad that Toto, when I saw his face when Lewis was winning the race in Silverstone, he looked like he aged 40 years with his hair all over the place. He's like, it's like finally on merit, no safety car or guys crashing, So, I mean, now look at how people looking at Toto, right?
Yeah, myself included.
Look after all that slander on Toto. And again, it's not like I'm trying to fanboy him or defend him or something, but like I'm just saying, look how people were going hard on Toto, right? I understand Lewis fans, they are still like giving him the jabs for some of his comments and all that. I understand there's a little bit of sour taste here because of what happened at the start of the season, because of the whole contract, yada, yada, yada. Lewis, in my opinion, deserves to be the ambassador of that team for building what he built with that team.
Yeah.
Right? I understand how they feel, and I get it as well. But then look at Toto. He got the car exactly what he needed. He actually, it's like Max when he told him, put your money where your mouth is. I don't care about your money. I care about the car. And Toto was like, bet, watch this.
Yeah. So quick comment on that. You look at the floor.
Here's the car. And not only that, you have George Russell.
Yeah.
You have Kimi Antonelli.
Yeah.
And you have Max. Like, this man is playing domino with, I'd say, 2 golden eggs and a half. I don't want to say who's the half. So nobody can come at me. So yeah, you have 2 golden eggs and a half over here. And they're like in the grasp of your hand. What do you do?
Yeah.
So now he looks in a much better position than Fred the way he looked after signing Lewis at the start of the season and some engineers from Mercedes better than Toto, who looked like this OPTP since the 2022 all the way up to Miami. No, sorry, I mean 2024. It just looks bad because of everything happening off track. And now Toto looks the star.
Do you
He's
know
not
what?
talking a lot, but yeah, go ahead.
I genuinely think Toto deserves all the flowers he deserves. Mercedes launches what was essentially a flawed concept 2022. 2023, they carried the same concept into. They abandoned that concept and went in. He has got that car that was massively unpredictable, bordering on shattering the driver's spines in 22.
Yeah.
And that upward development to get the car to where it is now is absolutely astronomical. And if you compare that, for example, I don't want to get into comparing teams because it's divisive and whatever, McLaren and Mercedes development to get back to the top, Toto seemed to do it quicker, and it's been incredible. Like the way he's navigated that team to be where it is, it's nothing short of brilliance. And that's why there are a lot of Mercedes. There's a lot of Verstappen fans, myself included, that are looking at that going, I'd like to see Max in that car and see what he could do. That car is where it should be. And like you say,
I'm not looking forward to that,
who do you think would?
I mean, in all fairness, if you ask me why I'm not looking forward for that,
why?
One, I don't know what Ferrari would look like in 2025.
Yeah.
Car is fast now.
Yeah.
But we have to judge that, or like we have to hold our praises again, because we don't know what's going to happen in the second half of the season. We don't know if Red Bull is going to get their shit together, literally. We don't know if McLaren will snap out of it and just be where they were, or pick up where they left off. And Ferrari be like, okay, snap out of it. Stop with this old drama. Let's finish the second half of the season on good momentum and build through it 2025. We know none of that. But based off what we've seen at the moment, if Mercedes remain the way it is and is competitive, and I'm sorry, please, nobody think I'm slandering the great Michael Schumacher, because I would never dare to do that. Only a fool would do. I started my life as an F1 fan, as a Michael fan.
So,
and the reason why I supported Lewis just was in spite of Fernando Alonso, because there were some points people saying, yeah, this guy is going to be better than Michael. And I was like, I was like, yeah, F you. I hate you, Fernando. Therefore, I'm going to support this rookie. And that's how I supported Lewis. So now there's no disrespect for me or hard feelings from Alonso. The guy, his talent speaks for itself. His choices of choosing teams does not speak for itself. It speaks for him, So what Lewis is doing at this age, many thought it's impossible to. And when everyone is saying, okay, let's say theoretically, if we have McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, all fighting for the win, who you guys think is going to win? Like, no, Lewis would not, because he's old, that's it. He looks like he lost the touch. When that car turned up, he's a whole different animal.
Yeah, and there's lots of fans that sit there.
Yeah, and Spa was like one of those, like, holy. Oh no, he's not joking. It's like it felt like those dominant Mercedes seasons where they look slow in qualifying, practice, and then in race, that car looks like it's slowly picking up the pace and just pulling ahead. I was like, this is giving me like 2018, like kind of vibes or something like that. So you think about it and you're like, what Lewis would do in that Ferrari, if the Ferrari is close to whatever Mercedes now, and Max Jones Mercedes, then oh man, oh man.
Yeah, we
Mercedes,
could be in...
Ferrari, Sir Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Max Verstappen.
It could
bury
be
me in that
cinema.
hell. I'm okay with absolute, not cinema, something beyond cinema. Bury me in that hell. I will be so happy. I don't care about anything to see those four going at it for a championship or whatever.
This is the thing. If we watch those four go for a championship and there's no like controversial moments, then we end up with what is potentially could be one of the best seasons going. Do you know what I mean? But just to quickly touch on Belgium there for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Even as a Red Bull fan, when I saw Max in qualifying, Max in practice, I thought he was going to be a slam dunk. Max would just come through the field. I did. And the pace of those Mercedes absolutely shocked me. And I was like, do you know what?
Then I cooked up about Max
yeah,
winning.
Yeah. By the way, I've come on here to tell you that little, the little curse you've got going on. I'm hoping this overturns it, man, because I want to see my driver win again, please.
I'm sorry, not until the end of the season.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just kidding.
I'd like to touch on something if I can, mate. I don't know if you've got more points, but I was just going to say, like, we've spoke for a while, and we started off as you was like, oh, this guy. I think a lot of people are like, oh, this guy.
This guy, I can't be asked. I really don't want to talk to this guy.
Yeah, and I think I got blocked by everybody, which is completely understandable. And with the Christian Order scandal at the start of the year, that was the moment that made me think I need to look at how I tweet, how I navigate this platform, how I actually look at the sport, because I'm not as one-sided biased Verstappen fan as everybody thinks that. Some people think I am. So I started to look at the way I tweet, which I think is really good. And I've got these two little graphs that I've got now, and it's a decider. Basically, does my tweet pass the decider test? Yes or no? That decides if I post it. And does my reply pass this little flow chart of like yes, no, blah blah blah? Does it add to the community? Does it target somebody?
Yeah.
And I think it's really good that this coming on here, for example, is just a real nod to that as well, and how I'm trying to pivot it and stuff. And I think a lot of people need to look at the way they tweet and accept that jokes are not always targeted abuse. We make some hilarious jokes, and some of the things you post, I'm just like, oh man, I wish I thought about that. And I'm just like, I shamelessly remix that? Do you know what I mean? I think
to be honest, look, for me, I don't care about like I really don't want to be speaking about this, but I have to say something, because for many times I just try to put myself as I don't care anything. No, of course I care. Yeah. But it's not like I care about like likes and tweets. No. What I care about is the community to be always good.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
You can wish for that, but does not mean necessarily that will be the case, And many of the time, I think there is a huge problem in the F1 community, especially on Twitter, because I think that's the biggest active community there is. And you think about it and you're like, you have to be careful who you're talking to, because not as in private, I'm talking like in the middle of, like, let's say commenting back and forth and all that. You could be talking to a kid.
Exactly. 100%.
And you're going back and forth with them, And the other big issue, and it doesn't matter what the age in this one, is that people don't understand the difference between hate and basically saying, oh yeah, he fucked it, for example. Yeah, that's his fault. Yeah, that's stupid. He shouldn't have done that, And people, me, can you say me? Like, calm down. Nobody is paying you anything.
Yeah.
If Red Bull, I don't want to bring his name in a bad way, because I have respect for him as a person, as a father, as a mechanic, and what he does with his team. I never knew the guy. I never spoke to the guy. Never once said anything to the guy. Never replied with anything to the bad. I just never even got the chance to say hi. And I was blocked by him. I'm talking about like F1 Mech, whatever his name. Yeah. Like, that guy blocked the entire Earth. And if he had an option where he can customize block Earth, he would block Earth. And it's okay. Maybe he has real reasons why he wants to do that. He wants to keep a clean picture. He doesn't want to deal with other fan bases, just let's say Red Bull fan base and all that. But if I am that guy defending Red Bull, fair, because they are paying me. I work for that organization. I take money out of that organization. They are putting food on my table. Of course, people can have choices of leaving, but in that sense, it's understandable if that person wanted to defend. And I've seen a lot of Mercedes engineers also on Twitter. Sometimes they'll be like, hey, what is this bullshit? Like, and defend their team and everything, because they're the one there doing the work. And as well, they work with that organization with love. Sometimes could be just, hey, I'm here to do my job. And they would defend it. which is as well understandable. But if you are a person who wakes up to go for your job, or if you're a student, or if you're jobless, or whatever, don't act like these people pay you anything. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
talk about the sensible things in a nice manner. Things that doesn't put talk about, oh yeah, yeah, they screwed this driver. They should have done this strategy. This and that. Yeah, it's okay. But to take it to a whole personal level, that is stupid in my book. And you should be touching grass or finding God or whatever you believe in. Do whatever. Do one of those two. So this is my problem with the F1 community. And as you said, like the first time when I met there, like when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, this guy, he's so annoying. I'm like, I'm gonna say something. Nah, I was like, why would I say, But over time, I just learned, why am I even stressing? I have a life,
Yeah, yeah,
and let people have their opinion. Let's chill. Like you have your opinion, as long as it doesn't involve hurting other people. I'm not saying about you. I'm saying in general, like hurting other people, like being racist or something like that, or a homophobe or any of that. Then there for me, yeah, that's there's a line over there.
yeah,
Islamophobe
100%.
and all that stuff. We've seen a lot of that on F1 Twitter, but on the line of discussing what's happened in the sport, even honor of the track, things that you cannot ignore, discuss it.
Yeah,
But don't go at other people for discussing it because you believe, I want to be the loyal soldier of this team. Why? If they don't pay you. Sorry, you had something you wanted to add.
yeah. I was just going to say, like, we've all got a responsibility to make sure that we handle ourselves and each other on here like better. And sometimes, if you're coming across somebody that's discussing in a certain way, they have a look into their profile because the algorithm's going to show you what your algorithm thinks it wants to show you. And like it doubles back to what we were talking about earlier, when all these things happen off track and then it bleeds into the community and then everybody's attacking each other. It can actually create a real terrible space. I mean, sometimes I'll turn my phone onto airplane mode. I'm like, I'm not going on that for the night. It's too much today. So it's everybody's got to treat each other like people first, and that's what's got to be the priority. Sport comes after the people. Because sometimes people, like you say, they just, like you said, your point exactly. They could be a child. Do you know what I mean? And it's really good. But it's nice that you get to a point where me and you can have our conversations about anything and everything,
Yeah,
completely disagree about what's happened, and it's all love at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? We don't have to
exactly
agree.
what it should be.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
listen, you mentioned a good point. You have said, like, yeah, you were talking about certain subject, and you're like, okay, I'm wrong. Uh, yeah, I should. It's also, I think we all said something that we thought is right at the time on, and then you reflect on yourself, and you're like, oh, oh my god. For a second thought, I look like an idiot. I look like somebody who's shelled, who knows nothing about life. And then you backtrack and then you correct yourself and then you move forward. I'm talking, this is F1 context, because there are sometimes opinions that it might sound right in your head, but then when you see everyone like swinging at you, not for a bad reason, for a good reason,
Yeah,
yeah, I've said also, I've tweeted some stuff sometimes, and when I thought, yeah, the subject sounds right, but then I'm like, oh, hold on a second, yeah, this is completely wrong. But it shouldn't turn to a hate that, like, I hate you all for doing this or saying this, or this is what social media is.
yeah,
You write something, accept anything that comes at you, except, yeah, things that are over the limit. But yeah, back to our F1 jabby jab and talk and everything. Do you think Ferrari, looking at the way they are, and Carlos Sainz now all of a sudden decided to go to the Williams? So this is a two-way question.
yeah,
Do you think Carlos knows or feels? Because again, this guy, when he came to Ferrari, he's a good driver, by the way. He's a decent driver. Uh, I would never say he's better than Leclerc. He had performances where he outperformed Leclerc.
yeah, yeah. He has.
It's like 4 or 5 races that are there for him. You'll be like, oh yeah, that's him, not Ferrari's crew in Charles or something. And then there are races where Charles basically proven that why he's a better talent. Again, this is no disrespect to Sainz. He's one of the top 5 on the grid. Inconsistent when it comes to consistency for me, I think he's top 4.
Yeah,
So we have to put the respect in that. Do you think he went to Williams because he thinks Mercedes is cooking something when it comes to the engine department and everything, blah 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 blah? Or do you think he went there because like, okay, this is a safe bet. I can bring the sponsors, all the Spanish sponsors, to Williams, and Williams like fair, bring anybody you want. Like you want to bring your family, they're welcome as well. We don't mind. Not in a disrespectful manner. Like that's a very motivated team, and they are trying their best to improve. But I'm sure they would not. Nobody's gonna say no to having sponsors at the end of the day. This sport needs every name that you have on that shirt you're wearing. They
Yeah.
need that, and without it, they are just a spec series then. So, do you think he went there knowing that Mercedes engine could be good, and or do you think he just went there because he just wasn't trusting the Audi project?
I think it could be a combination of both. I'll be completely honest with you. I think I think everybody thinks the Mercedes engine is going to come out of the blocks very, very ridiculously good. I think they've been making engines since forever, right? I think for me, there's probably more. Sainz can go to Williams, take a lot of pressure off himself before making his next decision. He can go to Williams. There's probably not the expectation to win races. I don't want to be
Yeah,
disrespectful to Williams,
obviously.
but he can go there, see how everything plays out with the new regs, with the new see where, and just almost be selective with where he wants. I think he came out and said like he had multiple teams offering him contracts and drives for next year and beyond. So he wasn't spoilt of choices. I think he's made a choice to take some pressure off himself so he can make the right decision in the future. He's got a lot of his career left. He doesn't have to make these big, massive decisions. You look at, I don't know how quickly the Ferrari Lewis deal ended up happening, but that would have literally uprooted Sainz instantly. As soon as that deal's announced, Sainz is like, wow, I've got to find a drive. So he's gone into this sort of like, backstep mode, and he needs to make a decision what's right for him and what's right for the next phase of his career and to develop into that next phase of his career. You talk about his consistency. I think he's incredible in that respect. So for him to take a couple of years at Williams, who are still they're on an upward spiral as well. It's not to say that they won't have a development path like the way McLaren or Aston Martin did in a few years ago. They had a real spike of performance into the new regs. It's not to say they won't do that either. And he is the kind of driver as well as Albon that could push that car past what it's supposed to do. So I think it's more taking pressure off himself to make the right decision when the regs come in. Nobody's going to make a long-term decision based on the last year of regs when the new regs are just totally different. You know what I mean? So I think it's
Yeah.
a smart move from him. I think, fair play to him because he's exceptional. He really is exceptional.
I mean, it is an excited drivers lineup, and I said it, they're going to be the best midfield driver lineup,
Yeah.
unless, because Hulkenberg is a strong driver by himself,
He is, yeah.
unless we see who Audi pulls next to Hulkenberg.
Yeah.
If it's Bottas, then that's going to be for me the strongest. Why? Experience-wise, experience is going to play a whole lot different. I know experience could mean nothing if you are falling off the cliff. Talent, like not talent, but like you lose the touch and everything with age. But if that stays the way it is, then Williams is the best with lineup. The other thing, I think why he didn't, I think he was waiting for that Red Bull seat.
Yeah.
To be honest, he was just eyeing himself, and then when he saw, they brought Dan Rick in the conversation, it's like, forget about it. He didn't want to go to Mercedes though, because Toto can drop him as quicker than Ferrari did for Max
Yeah.
or for Kimi, and Toto does not want to lose Kimi. And the fact, when you think about it, when both Kimi Antonelli and Kimi Antonelli and Max Verstappen are in conversation for that Mercedes seat, you're gonna have to be like, well, I'm George Russell. What about me? Like, haven't I been good? Like, you're a teenager, and a champion, fair. But me, what about me? I've been in the seat as well. So I think he was like, I want none of that smoke, because between those three, I have no chance.
Yeah.
So Audi, he was just worried they're just gonna pull up in shambles, And again, don't forget, I said this: if he goes to Audi, Nico Hulkenberg could smoke him.
Yeah.
That guy is good. And a lot of people just, when he came to F1, came back to F1, like, I don't see. I myself was like, I don't see how this guy's gonna do good. Boom, he just showed a whole different beast in him.
Yeah, people
So
forget how good Hulkenberg actually was, yeah, and still is. It's that's why I still think Sainz going to Williams is a smart move for decision making. He's done the right thing. It's I didn't think about it the way you've just put that, but to stay away from that smoke of what potentially could happen between Russell, Verstappen, and Antonelli, Toto's got to pick one of them. And if Sainz is there, he'll be the first one out the door. Do you know what I mean?
oh
You don't pick Sainz over any of those three. No disrespect to him, but
yeah,
and then that could be a real career damaging moment if he goes to Merck and he's bang dropped straight away. It's like when you get fired from a job; it doesn't look good on the CV kind of thing. I know with more
my.
context, it's understandable, but if Williams is going to get a couple of years of good racing and make the right decision for the next move, because he'll still be prime years when he's had a couple of years at Williams, he'll still be a driver that's desirable to top teams. So it's smart, but yeah, stay away from that potential implosion. Not implosion, but you get what I mean.
Power 88 said, I agree, Toto gets way more credit than he should. I think it's the opposite. He doesn't get. Okay, I'm not gonna say, oh, he should get more credit, but he is not credited for the much for what he does. And the other thing we should also mention is that if we're gonna mention Toto, it's not like he's the one who's engineering the car. Nobody's also given much credit to Lewis Hamilton and James Allison, because George Russell's a little bit, like he's a PR trained guy ever since announced Lewis has gone to Ferrari and everything, and they turned up with that car looking hideous. And he's like, well, we designed the car as Lewis wanted, so what do you want me to say, And James managed to turn it around based on everything Lewis was asking for that car. And now Lewis and James do look like the stars who made that car turn around. And James has been singing the praise about Lewis. Now, Toto should get the credit for finally listening to his team, finally listening to his drivers, and not go with those even at the start of the season they came with that weird wing with those little aluminum thin layers of at the front connected between the nose and the flaps of the front wing. So it's like, what do you guys keep inventing? Like, just come up with something normal and simple. Like, I know the cars, F1 cars are not simple, but like when you see the Red Bull car design, it looks simplistic when it comes to the eye, until they started going, oh yeah, narrow side pod inlets, and that, look at them. McLaren, simplistic design. And then when they went with a simplistic design when it comes to the front wing and suspension, all that stuff, the car's a whole lot different now. It's just like it should be. I'm not saying the simplest design wins you the stuff, but what's your expectations? I'm gonna try it. I don't want to keep you so long. We've been here for 1 hour 18 minutes. Chatting with you has been so lovely, man. I feel like I can go for hours with this.
Yeah, likewise.
What do you think about the next season between Lewis and Charles, and what kind of smoke should we expect? Not from Lewis and Charles, the fans.
Oh man, you're taking two of the most passionate fan bases that I've ever encountered in any sport, like the Tifosi and Leclerc fans, Ferrari fans, Lewis fans. We know how passionate all of those fan bases are going to be. I just hope they keep it clean, and I hope I personally think it's going to be an all-out drama fest with certain fan bases. I'll be honest with you, because I know how. Not only how passionate, when you put passion and opinionated people and people that genuinely love what they're supporting together against each other, it's a recipe for drama. I've dealt with, not dealt with, that's the wrong terminology, but I've upset the Tifosi, I've upset Leclerc fans, I've upset Lewis fans, it's very tough when you do upset them. Do you know what I mean? It's
bro did a 360
yeah,
everywhere.
exactly. Sometimes, God forbid, I ever tweet something that aims at all of them because I'll be gunned down in the morning.
No, that was a little bit annoying if you if you ask me, but I guess your point.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
I
just
hope so.
go ahead.
I hope it's okay. I hope the racing's clean and that doesn't bleed into the fan bases because it will be an absolute drama. Honestly, I mean, they're just screenshotting everything. Funny.
Oh my god!
And that's not because people are toxic. It's purely based on how passionate every one of those fan bases is, And but also, I also hope it doesn't fail as well. I'd hate to see that fail. Lewis in the Ferrari is iconic, and I don't want it to just become a retirement plan. I mean, no disrespect, but I don't want him to just go there, spend a couple of years, and then that's his career done. I want him to go there and have a valued amount of success. I mean, in my house next year, I've got me as a Red Bull fan. My youngest is a little Red Bull fan. He doesn't really understand it.
Yeah.
I've got a Leclerc fan son, and my little girl's a Lewis fan.
Maybe next season you're gonna be a Mercedes fan. You never know.
Oh, yeah.
I'm passing you the Mercedes torch, and you go. But no, I'll be honest. Mercedes will have a spot with me if Kimi Antonelli joins because I like that kid. And if you remember from the start of the season in April, I said that I was like, this kid could be either something or meh. In terms of, I think we might be in onto something. So if anything, Kimi Antonelli will still have my heart, honestly, if he goes to the Mercedes. But I have a question here for you, and I know this is really off topic, but I want to end it with this one from our friend Nate, 33 Fox Stappen _1. Scenario.
Oh, I know the comment as well.
I know which one he's talking about. I hate it because they're unfair, but here it goes. Scenario: Senna versus Hamilton. Car RB19. Who wins?
That is probably the most difficult question I've ever had to ponder, and I've been pondering it all day. I think you're talking an RB19 as well. That's the car, right? Oh my god. Oh. So based on Albon's interview about Max, right? He spoke about how hypersensitive Max has his car. It's like having a controller set up to 100, right? That for me probably says to me, and I could be wrong, that Senna. So when you look at the cars Senna drove, they were very much raw monsters. Do you know what I mean? And that's why I'm leaning towards Senna. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to go Senna. Purely based on how hypersensitive the RB19 is always set up in terms of how Max has it. I could be totally wrong.
I know which interview you're talking about where Albon said, like, it's like when you increase the sensitivity in the mouse, and just like the mouse are like just darting everywhere in the screen, and that's how Max likes the car basically. And I think even RB19, I'll give it Lewis all day, and I'll explain why. I know this is just hypothetical stuff and just imagining, because it's a little bit unfair. If I put Lewis and Senna in the MP44, Lewis got no chance at all. Not only Lewis, any driver in this modern era, you're gonna get no chance against either Senna or Prost in that car. To be able to hold one hand and shift in with one hand and all that madness, no bueno. If I bring Senna into an RB19 with Lewis will smoke him. Hear me out. The speeds these cars goes at, the sensitivity of these tires of this generation, and in those days there was like traction control, this and that. There was way you can manipulate to get more traction. Now you cannot. It's just you have a raging over 1,000 horsepower car, even though with a smaller engine than what it was in back in days. You got the V8s, V10s, V12s, and this is V6, but produces more horsepower. And given the size of these cars and the G forces they pull are much more than whatever that was. So if it comes to a race or even qualifying, I don't think Senna, if we just take him without training him, just take, pick, drop there, he will not do anything. So this is where I go back to that Sebastian Vettel comment that if we bring Fangio and all those guys and race in our cars, they will be shitting in our cars. And if we race in theirs, we will be shitting in their cars. So the most logical answer for me would be that Sebastian Vettel comment. On that note, I would love to thank you very much, Jay, for being here with me. And obviously, it's not going to be the final words for me. It's going to be you. Give me your thoughts on or prediction on the second half of the season, and we end it with that.
I think eventually Max does win. I think we see a lot more wins from Mercedes. I see we see a couple more wins from Norris as well, but I think Max tips it very close, and I'm talking last 2 races potentially.
Races, something like that.
It also could go down to the last race of the season, but from a non-biased Red Bull fan, which is what I am, a non-biased Verstappen fan, the racing has been fantastic this season. So we're all going to enjoy the second half of the season, I think, and I think we're going to see a lot more moments, which has been brilliant. It is a really good season so far, in my opinion. And even if it's not going our way at the moment, we still have to be in there, and we still have to be getting up for the races, staying up for the races. So, I think the sport's winning this year. I think the regulations are finally doing what they're supposed to have done, 2 years ago.
And I couldn't agree more with you, because it's thanks to the cost cap and Adrian Newey. These are the only 2 reasons I'm going to put and say cost cap and Adrian Newey. Because if this was not cost cap, Red Bull, Mercedes dropping some 60, 70, 80 million upgrade and see ya. Nobody will catch them. Jay, thank you very much for being here with me today, and for everyone for listening for our Breaking News show. I do not pick a time. It's always at random. I don't want to be just looking for big name this, big name that. I would love one day to have like very known figures in motorsport or F1 with me, but I want to give more to the fan base or people on the community, that people just read what they say and never get to hear what they say. And I think for me, this is what I want to focus on more. And then who knows, maybe if one day I can pull a driver, then I'm going to bring somebody as a guest with me from F1 Twitter, and we just cook his brain or her brain, and we'll see what happens. Thank you very much, Jay. And everyone, have a good night.